Nathaniel Reed's hands shook when he saw her face. The bruise spread like spilled ink across her cheekbone, and blood crusted the corner of her mouth. The woman who stepped off that stagecoach wasn't the bride he'd imagined during 8 lonely Montana winters. She was something else entirely, someone running from hell itself. When she pressed that crumpled note into his calloused palm, he read 5 words that changed everything. She needs safety, not marriage. He looked into her terrified eyes and made a promise that would cost him everything to keep. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay until the very end of this story. You won't believe what happens next. And comment below with your city, so I can see how far this story travels across the world. Now, let's begin. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Nathaniel Reed stood in the doorway of the Silverdale post office, holding the envelope like it might dissolve in his rough hands. 8 years, 8 winters, he'd watched snow bury his cabin, watched springs come without purpose, summers pass without laughter. The silence had carved him hollow. Martha Hendricks, the postmaster's wife, smiled at him from behind the counter. "That's from the agency, Nathaniel. You finally did it." He didn't answer. His throat had forgotten how to make words that mattered. Back at his cabin, he sat at the table his father had built 40 years ago and broke the seal. The handwriting was precise, feminine, professional. "Dear Mr. Reed, your request has been fulfilled. Miss Zoe Caldwell of Boston, Massachusetts will arrive via stagecoach on Friday, April 13th, 1883, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She is 26 years of age, educated, and of good moral character. We trust this arrangement will prove satisfactory to both parties. Regards, Mrs. Eleanor Pritchard. Western Bride Agency. 3 days." Nathaniel looked around his cabin. Dust covered everything. Cobwebs hung in the corners like widow's lace. The dishes in the basin had been there so long he couldn't remember what he'd eaten from them. His bed. Jesus, when had he last washed those blankets? He stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor, the sound obscenely loud in the dead air. For 3 days, he worked like a man possessed. He scrubbed floors until his knuckles bled. He washed every dish, every pot, every fork. He took down the curtains, yellowed things his mother had made before she died, and boiled them in the big kettle outside. He swept the porch, repaired the loose board on the 3rd step, oiled the hinges on the door so they wouldn't squeak. On Thursday night, he stood before the cracked mirror above his wash basin and dragged a razor across his jaw. The face looking back at him was weathered-lined, older than 34 had any right to be. Gray threaded through his dark hair. His eyes had forgotten how to be soft. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked his reflection. The reflection didn't answer. Friday morning dawned clear and cold. Spring in Montana Territory was a liar. It promised warmth and delivered frost. Nathaniel dressed in his only good shirt, the one he wore to church on the rare Sundays he bothered to go. He ran a comb through his hair. He polished his boots. At noon, he hitched his wagon and drove the 5 miles into Silverdale. The town sprawled along the creek like something that had fallen there and couldn't get up. 2 streets, maybe 30 buildings, a church with a crooked steeple. The Silver Dollar Saloon. Henderson's General Store. The stage stop with its weathered sign swinging in the wind. Nathaniel tied his horse to the rail and stood on the boardwalk waiting. Men passed by nodding. Tom Wilson, who ran cattle on the North Range. Sheriff Buck Holloway Starr, pinned to his vest, eyes that missed nothing. Martha Hendricks carrying a basket of eggs. "Big day, Nathaniel," she said, smiling. "Yes, ma'am." "You nervous?" "No, ma'am." She laughed. "Liar." 2 o'clock came. 2:15. 2:30. The stage was late. Nathaniel's hands started to shake. She wasn't coming. The agency had made a mistake. She'd changed her mind. Someone like him didn't deserve. The rumble of wheels cut through his spiral of thoughts. The stagecoach came around the bend, dust rising behind it like smoke. The driver, old Pete Garson, hauled on the reins, and the horses stamped and blew. Pete climbed down, spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Afternoon, Nathaniel. Got your package." The door opened. She was small. That was Nathaniel's first thought. Small and wrapped in a gray traveling dress that had seen better days. A veil covered her face, dark fabric that revealed nothing. Pete helped her down. She moved carefully like someone who hurt. "Miss Caldwell," Pete said. "This here's Nathaniel Reed." She turned toward him, and even through the veil, Nathaniel could feel her fear like heat from a stove. He removed his hat. "Ma'am." She didn't speak. Pete grabbed her trunk from the back of the stage, set it down with a thud. "Well, I'll leave you two to get acquainted. Good luck, Nathaniel." The stage rolled away, dust settled, the street emptied. They stood there stranger to stranger while the wind picked up and clouds gathered in the west. "I have a wagon," Nathaniel finally said. "It's not far, 5 miles. She nodded, just once, quick. He picked up her trunk light too light, like she'd left everything behind, and carried it to the wagon. When he turned back, she still hadn't moved. "Ma'am, Miss Caldwell." She lifted her hands to the veil. Her fingers trembled. She pushed it back. Nathaniel's breath stopped. The bruise covered the left side of her face, purple-black, spreading from cheekbone to jaw. Her lip was split, the cut fresh enough that it had scabbed, but not healed. Her right eye was bloodshot, the white turned red. But her eyes, Christ, her eyes were the color of winter sky, and they held nothing but terror. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper folded and refolded until the creases had worn white. She held it out to him. Nathaniel took it, opened it. The handwriting was different from the agency's letter. Rougher. Rushed. "Mr. Reed, she comes in need of safety more than marriage. Her uncle in Boston is a cruel man. She refused an arrangement he made and paid dearly for her defiance. The agency does not know the full truth. I am her friend and could not let her go to a stranger without warning him. She is kind, brave, and good. If you are a decent man, please protect her. If you are not, may God have mercy on your soul." A friend. Nathaniel looked up. Zoe Caldwell stood before him, shoulders back, despite the trembling chin lifted despite the fear. She was waiting for him to send her back, to reject her, to add one more bruise to the collection. He folded the note carefully, put it in his pocket. Then he lifted his hat and settled it back on his head. "Miss Caldwell," he said quietly. "My name is Nathaniel Reed. I have a cabin 5 miles west of here beside Willow Creek. It's not much, but it's clean and it's warm. I won't ask questions you don't want to answer. I won't touch you. I won't hurt you." He paused, choosing his next words with the care of a man defusing a bomb. "You're not alone now." She stared at him. Her lips parted. A sound came out, half sob, half gasp, and she pressed her hand to her mouth. Her voice cracked. "I can't pay you. I have nothing. I don't know why the agency. I don't know what they told you, but I'm not—" "Stop." Nathaniel kept his voice gentle. "I read the note. I see your face. That's enough. But, Miss Caldwell." He met her eyes. "I'm a simple man. I work my land. I mind my business, and I try to live right. I wrote to that agency because I was lonely, not because I needed a servant or wanted to own another person. You came here running from something bad. That's your business. But you're here now, and I'm here, and I gave you my word. Your word. Yes, ma'am, you're safe. As long as you're on my land, nothing and nobody will hurt you again." She searched his face for the lie, for the trap, for the moment when kindness would twist into something ugly. She didn't find it. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." He helped her into the wagon. She moved like someone who expected pain, with every motion, joint stiff, breath shallow. When she settled onto the seat, she pulled her shawl tight around her shoulders, even though the day wasn't cold. Nathaniel climbed up beside her, took the reins, and clicked his tongue. The horse started forward. They rode in silence. The road wound through grassland, sage, and wildflowers, dotting the earth like paint on canvas. Mountains rose in the distance, still snow-capped. A hawk circled overhead riding thermals Nathaniel couldn't see. "It's beautiful," Zoe said suddenly. He glanced at her. "Yes, ma'am." "I've never seen land like this. In Boston, everything is stone and brick. Buildings so close together you can hear your neighbors breathe." Must have been crowded. Suffocating. She closed her eyes. "I used to stand at my window and imagine open spaces. I never thought I'd actually see them. Now you're here. Now I'm here." She opened her eyes. "Mr. Reed, I need you to understand something." "What's that?" "I'm not running from the law. I didn't steal. I didn't kill anyone." Her voice hardened. "I just said no to the wrong man." Nathaniel's hands tightened on the reins. "Your uncle?" "Yes." "He do that to your face?" "Yes." "Anyone else hurt you?" She turned to look at him. "Why?" "Because if there's more than one man I need to watch for, I'd like to know. You'd fight for me, a stranger. I gave you my word, Miss Caldwell. Out here, a man's word is everything. Without it, he's got nothing." She studied him for a long moment. Then she turned back to the road. "My uncle Silas Caldwell is a shipping merchant. Rich. Powerful. He has friends in city government, the police everywhere. When my parents died of cholera 3 years ago, I became his ward. He said it was family duty. It wasn't." "What was it?" "A transaction." Her jaw clenched. "He wanted to marry me to his business partner, a man named Edmund Voss. Edmund is 63 years old. He's been married twice before. Both wives died under mysterious circumstances." She touched the bruise on her face. "I said no. Uncle Silas said I was ungrateful, defiant. He called me ungrateful property." "Property." "That's what he said. When I still refused, he—" Her voice broke. "He did this. Then he locked me in my room and said I'd stay there until I came to my senses. But my friend Clara worked in the house. She smuggled me clothes money and the address of the Western Bride Agency. She said the West was big enough to swallow a person whole, that I could disappear." "So you did." "So I did." Zoe's hands twisted in her lap. "The agency didn't know the truth. I lied on the application, said I was a widow, said I wanted a fresh start. I didn't expect anyone would actually want you." She flinched. "That came out wrong," Nathaniel said quickly. "I meant you didn't think anyone would see past the bruises and the running. You figured any man would send you back." "Yes." "I'm not any man." "No," she said softly. "I don't think you are." The cabin came into view. It sat in a small valley with Willow Creek running silver beside it. The mountains framed it like a picture. Smoke rose from the chimney Nathaniel had left the fire burning before he left. Zoe straightened. "You live here." "Born here. My father built this cabin in 1848. Died here too. My mother followed him 6 years later. It's mine now. It's lovely." He pulled the wagon up to the porch. "It's quiet. That's what it is." Too quiet, he almost added. But he didn't. He helped her down. She was lighter than she looked, all bone and fear, and carried her trunk inside. The cabin was one main room with a sleeping area divided by a curtain, a kitchen corner, a fireplace, a table, 2 chairs. Simple. Clean. Zoe stood in the doorway taking it in. "You can have the bed," Nathaniel said. "I'll sleep out here by the fire." "I can't take your bed." "You can, and you will." "Mr. Reed." "Nathaniel." "Just Nathaniel." She blinked. "Nathaniel, you've already done too much. I won't displace you from your own bed." "Miss Caldwell." He set the trunk down. "That bed is big enough for 2 people who aren't sharing it. I'll string up a blanket as a partition. You'll have privacy. Or if that makes you uncomfortable, I'll sleep out here. Your choice." She looked at him. Really looked at him. Searching for the angle, the trap, the moment when kindness turned to expectation. "The partition," she finally said. "Done." He showed her where things were. The pump outside for water. The outhouse behind the cabin. the pantry with its supplies, the wood stove, the basin for washing. She listened, memorized, nodded. "I'll earn my keep," she said. "There's no keep to earn. I won't be a burden." "You're not a burden, Miss Caldwell. You're a person." Her eyes filled with tears. She turned away quickly, wiping at them. "I'm sorry. I'm not usually—" "It's all right. It's not. You've been nothing but kind, and I'm falling apart like a woman who got beat and ran across a continent to escape." Nathaniel kept his voice gentle. "Seems to me you're holding up better than most would." She laughed. It was a broken sound, but it was a laugh. "You're very kind." "I'm really not. Ask anyone in town. They'll tell you I'm a grumpy bastard who doesn't talk to anyone." "Why did you write to the agency then?" The question hit him like a punch. Nathaniel turned to the fire, poked at the logs. "Loneliness is a kind of dying. Slow. Quiet. One day you wake up and realize you haven't spoken to another soul in 3 weeks, that your voice sounds strange in your own ears, that you've forgotten what it's like to hear someone else breathe in the same room." He set the poker down. "I didn't want to die that way." Silence stretched between them. "I understand," Zoe finally said. "Do you?" "Yes. In Boston, I was surrounded by people and completely alone. My uncle's house was full of servants' visitors' noise. But no one saw me. I was furniture, decoration, something to be arranged and sold." She touched her face again. "This was the first time in 3 years I felt anything at all. Even if it was pain." "That's a hell of a way to feel alive." "It is." She looked at him. "Thank you, Nathaniel." "For what?" "For not sending me back. For not asking me to be something I'm not. For—" Her voice caught. "For saying I'm not alone." He nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. That night, Nathaniel strung up a wool blanket as a partition in the sleeping area. He gave Zoe clean sheets, a pillow, a quilt his mother had made. She accepted them with trembling hands. "I'll be right out here," he said, gesturing to the main room. "You need anything, you call out." "Okay." "I'm a light sleeper. I'll hear you." "Okay." He left her there, pulling the curtain closed behind him. He settled onto the floor by the fire, using his saddle as a pillow, his coat as a blanket. It wasn't comfortable, but he'd slept in worse places. From behind the partition, he heard small sounds. Movement, water pouring, clothes rustling. Then nothing. He stared at the ceiling, watching shadows dance in the firelight. What the hell had he gotten himself into? A mail-order bride was supposed to be simple. Practical. 2 lonely people making a practical arrangement. Not this. Not a woman with bruises and terror and a rich uncle who might come looking. But when he'd read that note, when he'd seen her face, something in him had shifted. Something old and rusted had cracked open. "You're not alone now." He'd meant it. God help him, he'd meant every word. 3 days passed. Zoe moved through the cabin like a ghost, trying to make herself useful without being seen. She cooked simple meals that tasted better than anything Nathaniel had made in years. She cleaned, though the cabin was already clean. She mended his shirts, darned his socks, organized the pantry. She worked from dawn until dark, barely speaking, barely eating. On the 4th day, Nathaniel couldn't stand it anymore. She was scrubbing the floor he'd scrubbed before she arrived, when he walked over and gently took the brush from her hands. "Stop." She looked up, startled. "I'm not finished." "Yes, you are. This floor is clean. It was clean yesterday. It'll be clean tomorrow. You don't need to scrub it again." "I need to earn your keep. I know. You've said that about 50 times. He set the brush aside. "Miss Caldwell." "Zoe, please." Miss Caldwell was someone else. Zoe. The name felt strange in his mouth. Intimate. "You're working yourself to death. Why?" She sat back on her heels. Her hands were raw knuckles red. "Because if I stop, I'll think." If I think I'll remember. If I remember. Her voice broke. I need to be useful. I need to be worth something. You are worth something. How? I have nothing. I can offer nothing. I'm just a person. Nathaniel crouched down so they were eye level. You're a person, Zoe. That's worth everything. She looked at him, and something in her face crumbled. No one's ever said that to me before. Then people are idiots, she laughed. It was waterier this time, but it was real. You think so? I know so. He stood, offered his hand. Come on, you're going to rest. I don't need to rest. Yes, you do. When's the last time you slept through the night? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. He pulled her to her feet. You're going to sit on the porch, and you're going to watch the sunset, and you're going to remember that you're alive and safe. That's all. No scrubbing. No working. Just being. I don't know how to just be. Then I'll teach you. He led her outside. The evening was warm, the sky turning gold. He settled her in the old rocking chair, his mother's chair, and sat down on the step beside her. For a long time they didn't speak. They just watched as the sun sank behind the mountains, painting everything orange and pink and red. It's beautiful, Zoe whispered. Yes. In Boston you can barely see the sky. Too many buildings. Out here the sky goes on forever. She rocked slowly. Nathaniel? Yeah. Tell me about your family. He tensed. Not much to tell. Please, I'd like to know. He sighed, leaned back against the post. My father, Jacob Reed, came west in '48. Gold fever. He didn't find gold, but he found this land. Built this cabin with his own hands. Met my mother, Sarah, in town. She was a school teacher. They married within 3 months. Fast. Out here you don't waste time. Life's too short and the winters are too long. He paused. I was born in '49. Grew up on this land. Learned to work it, respect it. My father died when I was 22. Threw a shoe off his horse, fell wrong, broke his neck. My mother followed him 6 years later. Just gave up, I think. Died in her sleep. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, he thought. It doesn't. What about you? He asked. You said your parents died. Cholera outbreak, 3 years ago. I was 23. Her voice went flat. I woke up one morning and they were both dead. Just gone. The doctor said it happened fast, that they didn't suffer. I don't know if that's true or if he was just being kind. You were alone. I was alone. Uncle Silas showed up at the funeral, said I couldn't stay in the house by myself, that it wasn't proper, that he'd take care of me. She laughed bitterly. I was so grateful. I actually thought he cared. When did you realize he didn't? When he introduced me to Edmund Voss and called me a valuable asset. She closed her eyes. I should have run then, but I was scared. I had no money, no friends, nowhere to go, so I stayed, and stayed, until I couldn't stay anymore. You're brave. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Those aren't opposites. Nathaniel looked up at her. Brave doesn't mean not scared. It means doing it anyway. She met his eyes, held them. You're a good man, Nathaniel Reed. I'm trying to be. No, you are. I've met good men who try. Men who pretend. You're not pretending. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The stars came out. One by one they filled the sky until the darkness was alive with light. Zoe inhaled deeply. I can breathe here. Good. In Boston, I felt like I was suffocating all the time, like the walls were closing in. But here, she spread her arms. Here, there are no walls. There are mountains. Mountains are different. Mountains give you space. Walls take it away. They sat in comfortable silence until the cold drove them inside. That night, for the first time since she'd arrived, Zoe slept through until dawn. A week turned into 2, and the cabin began to feel different. Not louder, Zoe was still quiet. still careful with her words, but fuller somehow, as if the air itself had changed texture. Nathaniel found himself listening for her footsteps in the morning, the soft sounds of her moving through the kitchen, the whisper of her humming under her breath when she thought he couldn't hear. She was healing. Slowly. The bruise on her face had faded from purple-black to greenish-yellow. The cut on her lip had scabbed over and was starting to disappear. But the healing that mattered most was invisible, and Nathaniel could see it in the way she no longer flinched when he moved too quickly, the way she'd started to meet his eyes when they spoke, the way she laughed. Really laughed when he told her about the time his horse had dumped him in the creek and he'd had to walk home soaking wet. "You must have been furious," she'd said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I was. Horse thought it was hilarious. Animals have a sense of humor. That one does, ornery bastard." She'd laughed again, and the sound had filled something in Nathaniel he hadn't known was empty. On the 15th day, she appeared in the doorway while he was splitting wood, her hands twisting in her apron. "Nathaniel!" He set down the axe. "Yeah, I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. She was leaving. She'd changed her mind. She wanted to go back to Boston, face her uncle. "Take her chances with, 'I'd like to stay,'" she said quickly. "If you'll have me. I know the arrangement was temporary, or at least unclear, and I don't want to presume, but She took a breath. "I'd like to stay, if that's all right with you." Relief flooded through him so fast he felt dizzy. "Of course it's all right. You're sure I don't want to be a burden?" "Zoe." He walked over to her. "You're not a burden. You've never been a burden. This place is better with you in it. I'm better with you in it." She smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her. It changed her whole face, made her eyes bright, made her look younger. "Thank you." "Nothing to thank me for." "Everything to thank you for." She hesitated. "I want to do more, though. I want to help with the ranch, the animals, the work. I'm not just a house guest. I want to be useful." "You are useful." "I mean really useful. Teach me." He studied her. "It's hard work." "I'm not afraid of hard work." "It's dirty work." "I'm not afraid of dirt." "You ever worked with cattle?" "No." "Horses?" "No." "Chickens?" She lifted her chin. "I'm a fast learner." Something in her tone made him grin. "All right, but we start small. Chickens first." "Chickens first," she agreed. The chickens hated her. Nathaniel watched from the fence as Zoe approached the coop basket in hand determination written all over her face. The hens scattered, squawking and flapping like she'd come to murder them. "They don't like strangers," he called. "I'm not a stranger. I've been here 2 weeks." "To them you are." She shot him a look. "Very helpful, thank you." He bit back a smile. "Talk to them. They respond to calm voices. They're chickens. Smart chickens." She sighed, turned back to the coop. "Hello, chickens. I'm Zoe. I'm here to collect your eggs. I promise I won't hurt you. I just need—" A hen Nathaniel called her Bertha, though he'd never admitted out loud, lunged at Zoe's hand. Zoe yelped, jerked back, dropped the basket. Nathaniel couldn't help it. He laughed. Zoe whirled on him. "You think this is funny?" "Little bit. These are demon birds. They're protective of their eggs. They're possessed." He pushed off the fence, walked over. "Here, watch." He knelt down, murmured softly, reached into the nest box. Bertha clucked, but didn't attack. He pulled out 3 brown eggs, set them gently in the basket. "See, respect and patience. You make it look easy. I've been doing this since I was 6. You try again." She took a breath, squared her shoulders, approached the next nest box. The hen inside a scrawny thing with one eye watched her suspiciously. Zoe talked to her soft and low words Nathaniel couldn't quite hear. She reached in slowly. The hen shifted, but didn't attack. Zoe's fingers closed around an egg. She pulled it out, triumphant. I did it. You did. She beamed at him, and Nathaniel felt something shift in his chest. Something dangerous. They collected the rest of the eggs together, Zoe growing more confident with each nest. By the time they finished, she was laughing covered in straw and Feather's hair escaping from her bun. That was exhilarating, she said. It was egg collection. It was an adventure. He shook his head, smiling. Come on, adventurer. Let's get these inside before you decide to wrestle the rooster. There's a rooster. Big one, mean as hell. You stay away from him. Now you tell me. Over the next few weeks, Nathaniel taught her everything. How to feed the cattle, how to mend fences, how to tell when a horse needed shoeing. She learned to milk the cow, a patient old girl named Daisy, and to churn butter and to recognize the signs of a coming storm. She was clumsy at first, making mistakes that would have frustrated a lesser person, but she never gave up. She just tried again. You're doing good, he told her one afternoon as they worked together to repair a section of fence the cattle had knocked down. I'm doing adequate. Same thing. It's not. She hammered a nail into the post, struck it crooked, cursed under her breath. You're just being kind. I'm being honest. 2 months ago you didn't know which end of a hammer to hold. Now look at you. She looked at the crooked nail, then at him. I'm a disaster. You're learning. I'm slow. You're thorough. There's a difference. He reached over, pulled the nail out, handed it back to her. Try again. Straight down this time. Don't think. Just do. She tried again. This time, the nail went in straight. She stared at it like it was a miracle. I did it. You did. Nathaniel. Yeah. Thank you for being patient with me. He hammered his own nail in, didn't look at her. Patience is easy when the person's worth waiting for. He felt her eyes on him, but kept working. Summer arrived in full force, turning the grass gold and the sky white-blue with heat. Nathaniel worked shirtless most days, and he caught Zoe watching him once or twice when she thought he wasn't looking. She'd turn away quickly, cheeks pink, suddenly very interested in whatever task was in front of her. He was watching her too, though he tried not to. Tried not to notice the way the sun caught in her hair, turning it copper. Tried not to notice the freckles blooming across her nose and cheeks. Tried not to notice the way she'd started to move differently, looser, like she was remembering how to live inside her own skin. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching fireflies blink in the darkness, she broke the comfortable silence. I need to tell you the whole truth. Nathaniel's hand tightened on his coffee cup. All right. When I left Boston, I didn't just run from my uncle. I stole from him. She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. $200 from his office safe. I knew the combination. I'd watched him open it a dozen times. I took the money because I needed it to survive, to pay the agency, to have something when I got here. She turned to him. Does that change things? Did he owe you that money? What? Your parents, when they died. Did they have money? Property. Anything your uncle might have taken. Yes, my father owned a bookshop. Uncle Silas sold it 2 weeks after the funeral. Said the proceeds would go toward my care. I never saw a penny. Then you didn't steal. You took what was yours. The law wouldn't see it that way. The law's an ass. Nathaniel sipped his coffee. You did what you had to do to survive. I don't fault you for that. You should. I lied. I lied to the agency. I lied to you. You protected yourself. That's not the same as lying. She looked at him for a long moment. Why are you so kind to me? Why wouldn't I be? Because I'm trouble. Because helping me puts you at risk. Because I want to. He said simply. Because when I see you smile, something in me feels right for the first time in years. Because you make this place feel like a home instead of just a house. Because... He stopped himself. Too much. Too fast. Because you deserve kindness, Zoe. That's reason enough. She set down her own cup, clasped her hands in her lap. I'm scared. Of what? Of my uncle finding me. Of this all being temporary. Of... Her voice dropped to a whisper. Of being happy. Every time I start to feel safe, I remember that Uncle Silas has money and connections. That he could send someone. That this could all end and I'd be back where I started, only now I'd know what I was missing. Nathaniel set his cup down, turned to face her fully. Listen to me. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Not your uncle, not his business partner, not anyone. You understand? You can't promise that. Yes, I can. I just did. Nathaniel. I mean it, Zoe. You want to stay here, you stay. You want to leave someday, that's your choice. But nobody forces you. Nobody hurts you. Not while I'm breathing. Her eyes filled with tears. You barely know me. I know enough. What if he comes? What if he brings the law? Claims I'm a thief or insane or whatever story he invents? Then we deal with it. We. He reached over, took her hand. It was the first time he'd touched her beyond helping her down from the wagon or steadying her on uneven ground. Her fingers were small in his calloused now from work. You're not alone in this. I told you that the day you arrived. I meant it then. I mean it now. She squeezed his hand. I don't deserve you. That works both ways. They sat there, hands joined, while the night deepened around them and the stars wheeled overhead. Nathaniel knew he was falling, knew it was stupid and reckless and probably going to end in heartbreak. But he didn't care. For the first time since his mother died, he felt alive. Really alive. Nathaniel. Yeah. If things were different, if I'd come here without all the baggage and fear, would you have wanted me anyway? The question hung between them, fragile as spun glass. Yeah, he said quietly. I would have. She nodded, didn't let go of his hand. The next morning, Tom Wilson showed up at the ranch with news. Nathaniel was shoeing his horse when he heard the rider coming. He straightened, squinted against the sun. Tom rode up, dismounted, tied his horse to the rail. Morning, Nathaniel. Tom? Got a minute? Sure. What's going on? Tom glanced toward the cabin. Zoe was inside making bread. Maybe we should talk private. Nathaniel's stomach clenched. All right. They walked toward the creek out of earshot. Tom pulled off his hat, turned it in his hands. There's been some talk in town, he said. What kind of talk? About your bride, about where she came from, why she came. Tom met his eyes. Martha Hendricks got a telegram at the post office yesterday, from Boston. Some lawyer asking questions about a missing woman. Gave a description that matches Miss Caldwell pretty close. Nathaniel's blood went cold. What did Martha say? She said she didn't know anything. But Nathaniel, the telegram mentioned a reward. $500 for information leading to the woman's whereabouts. Christ. That's a lot of money. Some folks in town are struggling. If they hear about this, they'll sell her out. Maybe. Maybe not. But you should know what you're up against. Tom put his hat back on. I don't know what Miss Caldwell's running from, and I don't need to know. But you're my friend. I wanted to give you a heads up. I appreciate it. You need help, you call. Understand? Nathaniel nodded, throat tight. Thanks, Tom. Tom rode off. Nathaniel stood by the creek watching the water mind racing. $500. Jesus! That was more than most people made in a year. He had to tell Zoe. Had to warn her. Had to, Nathaniel. He turned. She stood on the porch wiping flour from her hands. Concern written all over her face. Who was that? He walked back to the cabin, climbed the steps. Tom Wilson. He's a friend. What did he want? No point in lying. She deserved the truth. There's been a telegram. From Boston. Lawyer asking questions about a missing woman. Description matches you. All the color drained from her face. They found me. Not yet. Martha didn't give anything away. But Zoe, there's a reward. $500. She sat down hard on the porch step, like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. That's a lot of money. It is. People will talk. They'll wonder. She looked up at him. I should leave. I should go before I bring trouble down on you. No. Nathaniel. No, we're not doing this. You're not running again. I have to. Don't you see if my uncle's sending telegrams offering rewards, he's not going to stop. He'll send people, investigators, maybe even come himself. And when they find me, when they find you, you'll be charged with harboring a fugitive, or kidnapping, or... I don't care. You should care. This is your home, your life. I won't let you lose everything because of me. He knelt down in front of her, took her shoulders. Listen to me. Really listen. I'm not losing anything. I'm gaining everything. Before you came, I was half alive, going through motions, waiting to die. You changed that. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning, a reason to care. And I'll be damned if I let some rich bastard from Boston take that away because he thinks he owns you. He does own me, legally. I'm his ward until I'm 30 or I marry. The words hung between them. Nathaniel's heart hammered. Then marry me. She stared at him. What? Marry me. Right now. Today. If you're married, he can't claim you. You're not his ward anymore. You're your own person. Free. Nathaniel, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. He squeezed her shoulders gently. I know this isn't what either of us planned, but it makes sense. It protects you. And maybe someday it could be real. Maybe someday we'd want it to be real. You'd do that. Marry a woman you barely know to protect her from her past. I'd do a lot more than that, Zoe. I'd do just about anything. She searched his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. She didn't find any. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll marry you. Relief and terror hit him in equal measure. You're sure? I'm sure. But Nathaniel, I need you to understand something. This marriage, it won't be. I can't be a real wife. Not right away. Not until I know. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for your name on a piece of paper that says you're mine to protect and no one else's to hurt. That's all. That's all, she repeated. Then she laughed, shaky and disbelieving. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. When? Now. Today. We ride into town, find the pastor, make it legal before anyone else hears about that telegram. She stood up, wiped her eyes. I need to change. I can't get married covered in flour. You look beautiful covered in flour. She smiled despite everything. Liar. Honest man. 30 minutes later, they were riding into Silverdale. Zoe wore her best dress, a simple blue thing she'd been saving, and had pinned her hair up. Nathaniel had changed into his good shirt, the one he'd worn the day she arrived. They looked like what they were, two people trying to look respectable on short notice. The church sat at the end of Main Street, white paint peeling the steeple slightly crooked. Pastor Mackenzie was inside, sweeping the floor. He looked up when they entered, surprise crossing his weathered face. Nathaniel Reed, Miss Caldwell, this is unexpected. Pastor. Nathaniel removed his hat. We'd like to get married. The pastor blinked. Now. But the banns, the proper procedure, we need a marriage certificate and someone to witness it. Nathaniel kept his voice steady. Can you do that, or do we need to ride to the next county? Pastor Mackenzie studied them both. He was old, had been in Montana since before it was a territory, and he'd seen just about everything. Whatever he saw in their faces made him nod slowly. All right, I'll need 2 witnesses. I'll get them. Nathaniel stepped outside, looked around. Tom Wilson was tying his horse to the rail outside the general store. Tom looked over, saw Nathaniel's face, and walked over. What's wrong? I need a witness. Zoe and I are getting married, right now. Tom's eyebrows shot up. Right now? Right now. This because of the telegram. This is because it's the right thing to do. Tom studied him, then grinned. About damn time you found some happiness. I'll witness. We need one more? Yeah. Martha Hendricks is in the store. She likes Miss Caldwell. She'll do it. They collected Martha, who bustled into the church full of questions and excitement, and immediately took charge of the situation like she'd been planning this wedding for months. She produced wildflowers from somewhere Nathaniel had no idea where and tucked them into Zoe's hair. She straightened Nathaniel's collar and told him to stand up straight. "You're getting married, not going to a funeral," she scolded. "Yes, ma'am." They stood before Pastor Mackenzie. Zoe's hand trembled in Nathaniel's. The pastor opened his Bible, began to read. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God." The words washed over Nathaniel. He looked at Zoe, really looked at her. The bruise on her face was almost gone now. Her eyes were clear. She looked scared, but determined, fragile, but strong. "To join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. Do you, Nathaniel Jacob Reed, take this woman?" "I do," he said before the pastor could finish. Pastor Mackenzie sighed. "Let me get through the vows, son." "Sorry." Zoe's lips twitched, almost a smile. The pastor continued. Nathaniel repeated the words when prompted. "Loved, cherished, honored, till death." He meant every word. Then it was Zoe's turn. Her voice was soft but steady. "I do." "Do you have a ring?" the pastor asked. Nathaniel's stomach dropped. He'd forgotten Zoe reached into her pocket, pulled out a thin gold band. "My mother's. She'd want me to have it, to use it." Nathaniel took the ring, slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." Nathaniel looked at Zoe. She gave the smallest nod. He leaned in, pressed his lips to her forehead. Gentle, respectful, a promise. When he pulled back, her eyes were wet. "Hello, Mrs. Reed," he whispered. "Hello, Mr. Reed." Martha was crying. Tom was grinning. Pastor Mackenzie was scribbling in his record book. "Sign here," he said, pushing the book toward them. They signed. Nathaniel's handwriting was rough, practical. Zoe's was elegant, beautiful. Their names sat side by side on the page. They walked out of the church into afternoon sunshine. Married, legal, protected. Zoe stopped on the steps, turned to him. "Thank you." "Nothing to thank me for." "Everything to thank you for." She took his hand. "I promise I'll be a good wife to you. Maybe not right away. Maybe not in all the ways that matter. But I'll try. I'll learn. Zoe." He squeezed her hand. "You're already more than I ever hoped for. The rest will come or it won't. Either way, I'm glad you're here." She rose up on her toes, kissed his cheek. Quick and soft. "So am I," she said. They rode home as the sun set, husband and wife bound by paper and promise. The marriage certificate was folded in Nathaniel's pocket. The ring gleamed on Zoe's finger. When they reached the cabin, Nathaniel helped her down from the wagon. They stood there, suddenly awkward. "I'll still sleep out here," he said. "Nothing changes unless you want it to." "Okay. Okay." They went inside. Zoe made dinner. They ate in comfortable silence. She washed dishes. He banked the fire. The routine was the same as every other night, except now there was a ring on her finger and a certificate that said she was his. "Nathaniel." "Yeah." "I'm glad it's you." He looked at her across the dim room. "Me too, Zoe. Me too." That night, as he lay by the fire and listened to her breathing beyond the partition, Nathaniel realized he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. He'd married her to protect her, yes. But somewhere along the way, between the chickens and the fence posts and the quiet evenings on the porch, he'd fallen in love with her. And he had no idea if she'd ever feel the same. The morning after the wedding, Nathaniel woke to the smell of coffee and something else, bacon maybe, and bread toasting on the stove. He opened his eyes, disoriented for a moment by the sunlight streaming through the window. He'd overslept. That never happened. He sat up, rubbing his face, and saw Zoe at the stove. She'd pulled her hair back in a loose braid, and she was humming again, that soft melody he'd started to recognize. The gold band caught the light when she moved her hand. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep. She turned, smiled. "Good morning. I made breakfast. I hope that's all right." "More than all right." He stood, stretched, felt his back protest. Sleeping on the floor was catching up with him. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to. First morning as your wife, I figured I should at least feed you properly." "Your wife." The words still felt strange. Real but unreal, like something he'd imagined so hard it had come true by accident. They ate together, and Nathaniel found himself watching her. The way she chewed thoughtfully, the way she wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like she was holding something precious. She caught him staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing. Just you look different." "Different how?" "Happy. Or at least less scared." She considered that. "I feel less scared. For the first time since my parents died, I feel like maybe things could be all right. Like maybe I have a future that isn't just surviving." "You do. We do." She nodded, but something flickered across her face. Doubt maybe, or fear that it was too good to last. 3 days passed in quiet normalcy. They worked the ranch together, ate meals together, sat on the porch in the evenings. The marriage certificate stayed folded in the drawer of Nathaniel's dresser, but the ring stayed on Zoe's finger. She touched it sometimes unconsciously, like she was reminding herself it was real. On the 4th day, Sheriff Buck Holloway rode up to the cabin. Nathaniel saw him coming from the barn. His gut clenched. Buck didn't make social calls. When he showed up at your door, it meant trouble. "Zoe," Nathaniel called. "Go inside." She looked up from the garden, saw the sheriff went pale. "Nathaniel." "Inside. Now. Please." She went, but she stood at the window watching. Buck dismounted, tied his horse. He was a big man, 6'3", and broad across the shoulders, with a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much. He'd been sheriff for 12 years, and he was fair, but he was also the law. "Nathaniel." "Buck." "We need to talk." "All right." Buck glanced toward the cabin, saw Zoe's silhouette in the window. "About your wife." "What about her?" "I got a telegram this morning from a U.S. Marshal in Boston, man named Eugene Cartwright. He's asking about a woman named Zoe Caldwell, says she's wanted for theft, says her legal guardian Silas Caldwell has filed charges and wants her returned to Boston to stand trial." Nathaniel's blood turned to ice. "She's not Zoe Caldwell anymore. She's Zoe Reed, my wife." "I know. I heard about the wedding. Congratulations, by the way." "Buck, let me finish." The sheriff pulled off his hat, turned it in his hands. "The marshal says Silas Caldwell claims his niece is mentally unstable, that she's a danger to herself and others, that she stole money and ran off with some fantasy about mail-order marriage, and that he's worried for her safety." "That's horseshit, and you know it." "What I know doesn't matter. What matters is what the law says. And the law says if a guardian files charges, they have to be investigated. So investigate. Talk to Zoe. Look at her. Look at what he did to her face. The bruises are gone, Nathaniel. Even if they weren't, she could say they came from anywhere. From you, even." Nathaniel's hands balled into fists. "I would never." "I know that. You know that. But a judge in Boston doesn't know that. All he knows is what Silas Caldwell tells him, and Silas Caldwell has money and power and connections. You have a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and a wife you married in a hurry." "What are you saying?" Buck met his eyes. "I'm saying Marshal Cartwright is on his way here. He'll arrive in about a week, maybe less. He's got papers, extradition orders. He's going to take Zoe back to Boston, unless you can prove she's not what Silas says she is." "How the hell do I prove that?" I don't know. But you better figure it out because once that marshal gets here, my hands are tied. I have to cooperate with federal law. So you're telling me I've got a week to save my wife from being dragged back to the man who beat her? I'm telling you, you've got a week to find a way to fight this legally. Because if you try to fight it any other way, you'll end up in jail or dead, and Zoe will still end up in Boston. Nathaniel stared at him. You're supposed to protect people. I'm supposed to uphold the law. Sometimes those things align. Sometimes they don't. This is one of the times they don't, and I hate it as much as you do. But that's the reality. Buck put his hat back on. I like you, Nathaniel. I like Zoe too, from what I've seen. She seems like a good woman, but liking someone doesn't change the law. You understand? Yeah, I understand. 1 week. Use it wisely. Buck mounted his horse, looked down at Nathaniel. For what it's worth, I hope you find a way. He rode off, leaving Nathaniel standing in the yard with his world crashing down around him. Zoe was out the door before Buck disappeared around the bend. She ran to Nathaniel, grabbed his arms. What did he say? Nathaniel told her. Every word. He watched her face go from pale to white, watched her hands start shaking. They're coming for me. Not if I can stop them. You can't stop a U.S. Marshal. Then we'll find another way. What other way? My uncle has filed charges. He has legal authority over me. The only way out was marriage and... She stopped, realization dawning. He'll say the marriage isn't valid. He'll say I wasn't of sound mind, that you coerced me or took advantage of my mental instability. Were you of sound mind? Yes. But he'll bring doctors, experts, people he's paid to say whatever he wants them to say. Nathaniel, you don't understand how powerful he is. He owns half of Boston. Judges, lawyers, politicians, they all owe him favors. This marriage won't mean anything if he can convince a court I'm insane. Nathaniel took her face in his hands, forced her to meet his eyes. Then we prove you're not. How? I don't know yet, but we've got a week. We'll figure it out. And if we can't? He didn't answer, couldn't, because the truth was, if they couldn't find a way, he'd lose her. She'd be taken back to Boston, back to her uncle, back to a life that would slowly kill her, even if it didn't do it quickly. That night they sat at the table, a lantern burning between them, trying to think of solutions that didn't exist. We could run, Zoe said. Go north. Canada. Somewhere he can't reach. Marshals can cross borders, and even if we got away, we'd be running forever, looking over our shoulders, never settling, never having a real life. At least I'd be free. Would you, or would you just be trading one prison for another? She closed her eyes, pressed her palms against them. I don't know what to do. We need proof, something that shows your uncle's lying, documents, witnesses, something. There's nothing. He made sure of that. The bruises healed. The people who knew what he did, the servants, Clara, they won't testify against him. They'd lose their jobs, their homes. He'd destroy them. What about the money you took? Can we prove it was rightfully yours? How my father's will went through probate. Uncle Silas was named executor. Everything was handled legally, at least on paper. I have no proof he didn't give me what I was owed because he never gave me accounting in the first place. Nathaniel slammed his fist on the table, making the lantern jump. There has to be something. There isn't. Don't you see he planned this? He made sure I'd have no way out. The only thing I could do was run, and now even that's been taken from me. No. Nathaniel stood up, paced. No, I don't accept that. There's always a way. We just have to find it. You sound like my father. He used to say that too. There's always a solution, Zoe. You just have to look at the problem from a different angle. Her voice broke. But he was wrong. Sometimes there is no solution. Sometimes you just lose. I'm not letting you go back there. You might not have a choice. There's always a choice. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. What choice? What can we possibly do that won't end with you in jail and me in Boston?" He didn't have an answer. The next morning, Nathaniel rode into town alone. Zoe had wanted to come, but he'd convinced her to stay at the ranch. No point in giving people more chances to gossip, more opportunities to notice her. He found Tom Wilson at the Silver Dollar nursing a whiskey, even though it wasn't yet noon. "Tom?" Tom looked up. "Nathaniel, you look like hell." "Feel like it too. I need to talk to you." They moved to a corner table. Nathaniel explained everything: the telegram, the marshal, the charges, the timeline. Tom listened without interrupting, his face growing grimmer with every word. "Jesus," he said when Nathaniel finished. "That's bad." "I know. I need help." "What kind of help?" "Information. You've been to Boston, haven't you? Years ago for that cattle deal?" "Yeah. Hated every minute of it. Too many people, too much noise." "Why? You know anyone there? Anyone who might be willing to help?" Tom frowned, thinking. "Maybe. There was a lawyer I worked with. Helped me navigate the contract. Good man, honest. Name's Samuel Peterson. But Nathaniel, even if he's willing to help, what can he do? He's one lawyer against a shipping magnate. He can dig, find something. Anything that proves Silas Caldwell isn't the upstanding citizen he claims to be. That'll take time, more than a week. Then he better start now." Tom pulled out a piece of paper, scribbled an address. "This is his office. I don't know if he's still practicing, but it's worth a shot. You want me to wire him?" "Yeah, tell him." Nathaniel stopped, tried to figure out what to say. "Tell him it's a matter of life and death. Tell him I'll pay whatever he asks. Just tell him to dig into Silas Caldwell and find me something I can use. I'll do it today." Tom folded the paper, pocketed it. "What else do you need?" "Time, and a miracle." "Can't help with miracles, but I can help with time." Tom leaned forward. "Listen, Marshall gets here, he's going to want to take Zoe immediately. We can slow that down. Make him jump through hoops. Territorial jurisdiction, proper paperwork, all that bureaucratic nonsense. It won't stop him, but it might buy you a few extra days." "How?" "Pastor Mackenzie. The marriage license. If it's properly filed and registered, it's harder for Caldwell to claim it's invalid. We make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Make the marshal work for it." "Will that be enough?" "Probably not, but it's something." Nathaniel nodded. "All right, do it." He left Tom at the saloon and went to find Pastor Mackenzie. The old man was in his garden, tending to vegetables that looked half dead from the heat. "Nathaniel, twice in 1 week. I'm honored." "Pastor, I need to ask you something. The marriage license. It's filed properly, right? Legal and binding." Mackenzie straightened, rubbed his lower back. "Of course, I filed it the same day. Why?" "Just making sure." Nathaniel hesitated. If someone tried to challenge it, say it wasn't valid, or that Zoe wasn't capable of consenting, would it hold up? The pastor's eyes narrowed. "Someone's challenging your marriage." "Might be. Soon." "Who?" "Her uncle from Boston. He's claiming she's mentally unstable." Mackenzie snorted. "I've known mentally unstable people, son. Your wife isn't one of them. She was clear-headed, calm, and knew exactly what she was doing when she married you. I'd testify to that in any court." "You'd do that?" "Of course. I don't perform marriages for people who aren't fit to make their own choices. That girl is as sane as you or me, and anyone who says different is lying." Relief flooded through Nathaniel. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Testimony from a frontier pastor might not carry much weight against a Boston magnate with money to burn, but it's something." "It's something." Tom had said the same thing, but Nathaniel was starting to realize that something might not be enough. He rode home slowly, trying to think of other angles, other approaches. By the time he reached the cabin, the sun was setting, and his head was pounding. Zoe met him at the door. "Well?" "Tom's wiring a lawyer in Boston. Pastor Mackenzie will testify that you were of sound mind when we married. It's a start. But not enough. But not enough. She nodded like she'd expected it. Nathaniel, maybe it would be easier if I just went back. No. Listen to me. If I go back willingly cooperate, maybe he'll what? Be merciful. The man beat you and tried to sell you like property. You think he's going to forgive you for running? No. But maybe I can endure it. Maybe I can find a way to escape again later when he's not expecting it. Or maybe he'll lock you up somewhere you can never escape. Maybe he'll marry you off to Voss so fast you won't have time to breathe. Maybe... Nathaniel's voice broke. Maybe I'll never see you again. She touched his face. You barely know me. That doesn't matter. It should. Well, it doesn't. He caught her hand, held it against his cheek. I know you enough to know I don't want to live in a world where you're suffering. I know you enough to know that losing you would break something in me that won't heal. So no, Zoe. You're not going back. Not willingly. Not ever. She stared at him, and something shifted in her expression. Something soft and fragile and terrifying. Nathaniel! A gunshot cracked through the evening air. They both froze. Then Nathaniel was moving, grabbing his rifle from above the door, pushing Zoe behind him. Stay here. Nathaniel! Stay. Here. He slipped outside, rifle-raised eyes scanning the darkening landscape. Another shot, this one closer. From the ridge above the cabin. Someone was shooting at them. Nathaniel dropped behind the water trough, tried to pinpoint the shooter's location. The third shot hit the cabin wall, spraying splinters. Not warning shots. Someone was trying to kill them. Or trying to kill him and take Zoe. Rage burned through his fear. He aimed toward the ridge, fired twice. Heard a shout, pain or surprise he couldn't tell. Then hoofbeats. Someone riding away fast. Nathaniel stayed behind the trough for another 5 minutes, making sure it wasn't a trick. When he was certain the shooter was gone, he ran back inside. Zoe was pressed against the far wall, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. He dropped the rifle, went to her, pulled her into his arms. It's okay. They're gone. You're safe. Who was it? I don't know. Couldn't see in the dark. It was him. It had to be. Uncle Silas sent someone. He's not even waiting for the marshal. He's just going to take me. He's not taking you. I won't let him. You can't stop bullets, Nathaniel. No, but I can make sure they don't get close enough to fire them. He held her until the shaking stopped, until her breathing evened out. Then he pulled back, looked her in the eyes. Pack a bag. Clothes, food, whatever you need for a few days. What? Why? We're leaving, tonight. But you said running? I said running forever wasn't a solution. I didn't say hiding for a few days while we figure this out was off the table. There's a line shack up in the high country, old, half falling down, but defensible. We'll go there until the marshal arrives, until I can figure out who's shooting at us and what the hell we're going to do about it. Nathaniel, this is your home. You can't just leave. Home is wherever you are. Now pack. We don't have much time. She packed. He loaded supplies into saddlebags, food, blankets, ammunition. He saddled both horses, tied the bags on, helped Zoe mount. You ever fired a gun? He asked. No. You're going to learn. He handed her his revolver. This is the safety. This is the trigger. You point and shoot. Don't think. Just do. Understand? She took the gun with trembling hands. I understand. Good. Let's go. They rode into the darkness, leaving the cabin behind. The line shack was 5 miles up the mountain, accessible only by narrow trails that wound through pine forest and over rocky outcroppings. The horses picked their way carefully through the night. Zoe didn't speak. Nathaniel could feel her fear like a living thing between them. They reached the line shack near midnight. It was exactly as Nathaniel remembered: one room, dirt floor, a stone fireplace that probably didn't draw properly. But it had 4 walls and a door that locked, and it was hidden enough that unless someone knew where to look, they wouldn't find it. He helped Zoe down, unsaddled, the horses, tied them under the lean-to. Then he got Zoe inside and barred the door. We'll stay here until morning. Get some rest. Then we'll figure out our next move. She sat on the floor, hugged her knees. This is my fault. All of this. If I'd never come here, then I'd still be alone and half dead inside. Don't you dare apologize for being alive, Zoe. Someone tried to kill you tonight because of me. Someone tried to kill you. I was just in the way. He sat down beside her. And I'd get in the way 1,000 more times if that's what it took to keep you safe. She turned to him. In the moonlight coming through the single window, her eyes were huge and dark. Why? Why what? Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. I'm just a woman who showed up on a stagecoach with a bruised face and a bag full of lies. You're not nobody. You're Zoe. You're my wife. You're the first person in 8 years who made me remember what it feels like to be human. He reached over, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You're everything, Zoe. Don't you see that? She made a sound, half sob, half laugh. I'm scared. Me too. What if we can't fix this? What if the marshal comes and takes me and I never... Her voice broke. What if I never see you again? That's not going to happen. You can't know that. I can, because I'm not giving up. Not now. Not ever. We're going to find a way through this, Zoe. Together. I promise you. She leaned against him, let him wrap his arms around her. They sat there on the dirt floor of a falling-down shack in the middle of nowhere, holding each other while the night stretched out around them. Nathaniel. Yeah. I think... She stopped, started again. I think I'm falling in love with you. His heart stopped. Started. Raced. You think... I know, I am. I'm falling in love with you, and it's terrifying because I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone. I thought love was something other people had, something I'd read about in books. But you... She pulled back to look at him. You made me believe in it. You made me want it. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only stare at her and try to process what she'd just said. Say something, she whispered. I love you too. I have for weeks. I just didn't think you'd ever feel the same. She smiled. It was watery and shaky, but it was real. We're a mess, aren't we? Biggest mess in Montana. What are we going to do? We're going to fight, and we're going to win. How can you be so sure? Because we have to, because I'm not losing you, because love is worth fighting for even when the fight seems impossible. She kissed him. It was soft and tentative, and tasted like salt from her tears. But it was a kiss, and it was real, and it was theirs. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against his. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter how bad things get, we'll always have this moment, this feeling, that they can't take it away from us. I promise. They fell asleep there, wrapped around each other, while outside the wind picked up and clouds moved in, and somewhere down the mountain, the people who wanted to tear them apart were making their own plans. But for now, in the darkness of the line shack, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. Dawn came cold and gray, filtering through the gaps in the shack's walls. Nathaniel woke first, his body stiff from sleeping on the hard ground, but he didn't move. Zoe was curled against him, her head on his chest, one hand fisted in his shirt, like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. He looked down at her, at the way her eyelashes rested against her cheeks, at the small crease between her eyebrows, even in sleep. She'd said she loved him. The words kept echoing in his head, impossible and perfect, and terrifying all at once. Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment she looked confused, disoriented. Then memory flooded back and fear chased the sleep from her face. It's morning, she said. Yeah. We're still here. Yeah. She sat up, pushed her hair back. What do we do now? We go back down. Face whatever's coming. Nathaniel. We can't hide forever, Zoe. And I'm not letting some bastard with a gun chase me off my own land. We go back. We prepare. And when that marshal shows up, we deal with him. What if the shooter comes back? Then I'll be ready. He stood, offered her his hand. Come on, we've got work to do. They rode down the mountain as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist. When the cabin came into view, Nathaniel's hand tightened on the reins. Everything looked normal, peaceful, but the bullet holes in the wall were a reminder that peace was fragile out here. He dismounted, first rifle in hand, and checked the perimeter. No signs of anyone. No tracks except their own from the night before. Whoever had shot at them was gone. For now. Inside, Zoe started breakfast, while Nathaniel boarded up the broken window and reinforced the door. They worked in tense silence, both of them jumping at every sound from outside. We need more ammunition, Nathaniel said. And I need to teach you how to shoot properly. Not just point and pray, but actually hit what you're aiming at. All right. After they ate, he took her outside and set up Target's old cans on fence posts, a piece of wood with a circle drawn on it. He stood behind her, showed her how to hold the gun, how to sight down the barrel, how to breathe and squeeze instead of pull. Don't jerk the trigger, smooth and steady, like this. He demonstrated, hit the can dead center. It flew off the post with a satisfying clang. Zoe took the gun back, aimed, fired. The shot went wide, kicking up dirt 3 feet to the left of the target. Damn it! Again. She tried again. Missed again. Tried a third time. This one was closer, but still wide. I'm terrible at this. You're learning. There's a difference. Again. She fired until her hands were shaking and her ears were ringing. The 10th shot finally hit not the center, but the edge of the wooden target. She whooped, turned to him with a grin that made his heart ache. I hit it. You did. Now do it again. She did. And again. By the time they ran out of ammunition, she was hitting the target more often than not. Not perfect, but good enough to defend herself if she had to. I never thought I'd be learning to shoot a gun, she said as they walked back to the cabin. In Boston, I took piano lessons and embroidery classes and learned which fork to use at dinner parties. Which is more useful, piano or pistol? She laughed. Out here, definitely pistol. You can still play piano when this is over. I've always wanted one of those. You want a piano? My mother did. She used to talk about it. How when they had enough money, she'd get one shipped from back east and fill this cabin with music. She died before it happened. Zoe took his hand. If we get through this, when we get through this, we'll get a piano. I'll play for you every evening. I'd like that. They were almost to the porch when they heard hoofbeats. Multiple riders coming fast. Nathaniel's hand went to his gun. Get inside. Nathaniel. Inside. Now. She ran. He stayed on the porch, rifle ready, watching as 3 riders came around the bend. His muscles tensed, ready to fire, ready to fight. Then he recognized them. Sheriff Holloway in front, Tom Wilson on his right, and Pastor Mackenzie on his left. Nathaniel lowered the rifle, but didn't relax. Buck. Nathaniel. The sheriff dismounted, and the others followed. We need to talk. About what? About the shots fired last night. About the rider I tracked from here to the North Ridge and lost in the rocks. About the fact that someone tried to kill you and your wife. You know about that. Half the county knows about it. Sound carries in these mountains. I came out at first light to investigate. Buck's expression was grim. I found shell casings. 3 of them. Whoever it was knew what they were doing. Professional shooter, not some drifter taking pot shots. Nathaniel's blood went cold. Professional. Yeah. Which means someone hired them. Someone with money. Someone like Silas Caldwell. Zoe stood in the doorway, pale but steady. He hired someone to kill us. Maybe, probably, But I can't prove it, and even if I could, what am I supposed to do? Wire Boston and ask if a shipping magnate hired an assassin? They'd laugh me out of the telegraph office. So we're just supposed to wait here while someone takes shots at us? No. You're supposed to come into town. Stay at the hotel where there are witnesses and walls and a locked door. Make it harder for whoever this is to get to you. Nathaniel started to protest, but Tom cut him off. He's right, Nathaniel. You're sitting ducks out here. In town you've got people watching. You've got backup. I can't just abandon my ranch. You're not abandoning it. You're being smart. I'll watch the place. Make sure no one burns it down or steals your cattle. But you and Zoe need to be somewhere safe. Nathaniel looked at Zoe. She was gripping the doorframe so hard her knuckles were white. What do you think? He asked her. I think I don't want you to die because of me. That's exactly what will happen if we stay here. Professional shooter Nathaniel. That means next time they won't miss. Her voice shook. Please, let's go to town. He wanted to argue, wanted to stand his ground, protect what was his. But when he looked at her, really looked at her, he saw the fear she was trying to hide. The exhaustion, the weight of everything crushing down on her. All right, we'll go to town. Relief flooded her face. Buck nodded approvingly. Good decision. Pack what you need. We'll ride back together. What about the marshal? Nathaniel asked. When's he due? 3 days, maybe 4. Wire said he was delayed in Denver, some jurisdictional issue with another case. Bought you a little time. 3 days. That was all they had. 3 days to figure out how to keep Zoe safe. How to prove Silas Caldwell was lying. How to stop a man with more power and money than Nathaniel could ever imagine. They packed quickly. Clothes, documents, the marriage certificate wrapped carefully in oilcloth. Nathaniel took his father's pocket watch, his mother's Bible. Zoe took almost nothing she still owned. Almost nothing, just the dress she'd worn when she arrived, and a shawl his mother had made years ago. The ride to Silverdale felt like a funeral procession. Slow, heavy, inevitable. The hotel was a 2-story building with peeling paint and rooms that smelled like tobacco and old dreams. Martha Hendricks met them at the door, wringing her hands. Oh, Nathaniel, Zoe, I heard about the shooting. Are you all right? We're fine, Martha. Fine. Someone tried to murder you. That's not fine. That's... She stopped herself. Took a breath. I've prepared the best room we have. 2nd floor corner, good sightlines. And I'm putting you right next to John Garrett's room. He's a light sleeper and a crack shot. Anyone tries anything, he'll hear it. Thank you. She led them upstairs. The room was small, but clean, with a bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over Main Street. Nathaniel checked the locks, the windows, the walls. Everything was solid. Not perfect, but better than being exposed at the ranch. When Martha left, promising to bring up dinner later, Zoe sat on the edge of the bed and put her face in her hands. I hate this. I know. I hate that we're hiding. I hate that someone's trying to kill us. I hate that my uncle has so much power he can reach across a continent and destroy everything good in my life. Nathaniel sat beside her. He hasn't destroyed anything yet. He will. In 3 days that marshal will arrive and he'll have papers and authority and legal right to take me, and there's nothing we can do to stop him. There's always something we can do. Like what? We've got no proof, no witnesses, no way to fight a man like Silas Caldwell. Then we find a way. Tom wired that lawyer in Boston. Maybe he'll find something. And if he doesn't... Nathaniel didn't answer. Because the truth was, if the lawyer didn't find something, they were out of options. The law was on Silas Caldwell's side. Money was on his side. Power was on his side. All they had was love and desperation, and neither of those counted for much in a courtroom. That evening, Tom brought news. They met in the hotel dining room, away from prying eyes and listening ears. Peterson wired back. Tom said, sliding a folded telegram across the table. He's looking into Caldwell. Says he's heard rumors over the years, but nothing concrete. Caldwell's careful, covers his tracks. But Peterson's got connections, people who owe him favors. He's digging. Nathaniel read the telegram. The words were professional cautious, but there was something there. A hint of possibility. How long will it take? He doesn't know. Could be days. Could be weeks. We've got 3 days. I know. Tom leaned forward. But listen, even if he doesn't find anything in time, the fact that someone's investigating might be enough. Might make Caldwell nervous. Might make him pull back. Or it might make him more desperate to get Zoe back before the truth comes out. Zoe's voice was flat. Men like my uncle don't respond to investigation with retreat. They respond with escalation. She's right, Nathaniel said. He's already sent someone to kill us. What's he going to do when he finds out we're not backing down? Tom didn't have an answer to that. The next 2 days crawled by like wounded animals. Nathaniel and Zoe stayed in the hotel room, only leaving for meals or to meet with Buck or Pastor Mackenzie. The whole town knew what was happening now. People whispered when they passed, some sympathetic, some skeptical. A few openly said Nathaniel was crazy for fighting this, that he should just let the girl go back where she came from. They don't understand, Zoe said one night, lying in his arms in the narrow hotel bed. They'd been sleeping in the same bed since they came to town. No point in pretending anymore. No point in distance. They think love is easy. Something that just happens and works out because that's how stories go. What do you think love is? She was quiet for a long time. I think it's choosing someone every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I think it's standing up and fighting even when you're terrified. I think it's this. Us. Right now. He kissed her forehead. I'd choose you every day for the rest of my life, Zoe Reed. I'd choose you too. On the 3rd day, the marshal arrived. Nathaniel saw him from the hotel window. A tall man in a dark suit riding a bay horse with a face like weathered stone, and eyes that had seen too much. He dismounted in front of the sheriff's office, tied his horse, went inside. He's here, Nathaniel said. Zoe stood behind him looking over his shoulder. She didn't say anything. Didn't need to. 20 minutes later, Buck appeared at their door. Marshal Cartwright wants to see you both, now. They went downstairs out into the street that felt too bright and too hot into the sheriff's office that smelled like coffee and old leather. The marshal stood when they entered. He was older than Nathaniel expected, maybe 50, with gray threading through his dark hair and scars on his hands that spoke of a hard life. Mr. Reed. Mrs. Reed. His voice was deep gravelly. I'm Marshal Eugene Cartwright. I've been authorized by the federal court in Boston to investigate allegations against Mrs. Reed and, if warranted, escort her back to Massachusetts to stand trial. Allegations that are false, Nathaniel said. That's not for me to determine. My job is to gather facts and execute the warrant if the facts support it. He turned to Zoe. Mrs. Reed, I need to ask you some questions. I'll answer them. Did you on or about March 15th of this year take $200 from a safe belonging to your legal guardian Silas Caldwell? Yes. Nathaniel's stomach dropped. Don't admit it, he wanted to shout. Deny everything. But Zoe continued, her voice steady. I took money that was rightfully mine. Money from my father's estate that my uncle stole when he sold my father's business and kept the proceeds. Do you have proof that the money was yours? No. My uncle controlled all the documentation. He was executor of my father's will. He gave me no accounting. Then by law the money belonged to him, which means you committed theft. By law I belong to him too, like property, like furniture. Does that make it right? The marshal's expression didn't change. The law doesn't concern itself with right and wrong, Mrs. Reed, only with legal and illegal. You took money that wasn't legally yours. That's theft. I took money to escape a man who beat me and tried to force me into marriage with a monster. Do you have proof of the abuse? The bruises are gone now. But there were witnesses, servants in the house who saw, servants who work for Silas Caldwell and depend on him for their livelihood. Their testimony would be worthless in court. You know that. Zoe's hands clenched into fists. So I'm just supposed to go back. Let him do whatever he wants. Pretend none of this happened. That's between you and the courts in Boston. My job is to take you there. No. Nathaniel stepped forward. She's my wife, legally married under the laws of Montana Territory. That supersedes any guardianship arrangement. Does it? The marshal pulled papers from his coat. I have an affidavit here from 3 doctors in Boston. All of them swear that Zoe Reed is mentally unstable, prone to delusions, incapable of making rational decisions. They recommend immediate medical intervention and return to her guardian's care. That's a lie, Zoe said. I've never met any of those doctors. They've reviewed your case files, your behavior, your history of what? Refusing to marry a man who's killed 2 wives, refusing to be sold like cattle. History of erratic behavior according to these documents, running away, making wild accusations, entering into a hasty marriage with a stranger. The marshal looked at Nathaniel. No offense, Mr. Reed. Plenty taken. Buck cleared his throat. Marshal, I've known Zoe Reed since she arrived here months ago. She's shown no signs of mental instability. She's rational, coherent, and fully capable of making her own decisions. Your opinion is noted, Sheriff. But it doesn't outweigh the testimony of 3 licensed physicians. Physicians who've been paid by Silas Caldwell to say whatever he wants, Nathaniel said. This is a setup. You know it. I know it. Everyone in this room knows it. What I know is that I have legal documentation and a federal warrant. What you have is speculation and feelings. The marshal folded the papers, put them back in his coat. Mrs. Reed, I'm giving you a choice. Come with me voluntarily, or I'll be forced to take you by authority of this warrant. Which is it going to be? Zoe looked at Nathaniel. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. If I refuse, then I arrest you, and your husband if he interferes. You'd arrest me for protecting my wife. I'd arrest you for obstructing a federal officer in the execution of his duty. Don't make this harder than it has to be, Mr. Reed. Nathaniel's hand moved toward his gun. Buck saw it, stepped between them. Don't. Nathaniel, don't. You shoot a federal marshal, your life is over. Hers too. He's taking her anyway. Maybe. But if you shoot him, there's no maybe about what happens next. Think. Use your head. Nathaniel wanted to scream, wanted to fight, wanted to do something, anything other than stand there helpless while this stranger prepared to rip his world apart. Zoe touched his arm. Nathaniel, look at me. He looked. Her eyes held his steady despite the tears. Don't do anything stupid, she whispered. Please, I need you alive. I need you free. Promise me. Zoe, promise me. He wanted to refuse, wanted to fight until they dragged him away in chains. But the look in her eyes, the desperate, loving, terrified look, broke him. I promise. She turned to the marshal. I'll go. But I want it on record that I'm going under protest, that I'm being forced against my will, that this is wrong. Noted. The marshal's face softened just slightly. For what it's worth, Mrs. Reed, I'm sorry. I don't like this any more than you do. But I'm a lawman. I enforce the law even when it's unjust. Then you're as guilty as my uncle. Maybe I am. He put handcuffs on her. Nathaniel felt each click like a gunshot to his chest. Zoe stood there, chin up, refusing to cry, refusing to break. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow morning, first stage east. Can I? Her voice cracked. Can I have tonight with my husband? Please. The marshal looked at Buck. Buck nodded. I'll keep them at the hotel. They won't run. You have my word. All right. But Mrs. Reed stays in custody. I'll post a guard outside your room. Thank you, Zoe whispered. They walked back to the hotel in silence, the marshal's deputy following them like a shadow. People stared, whispered. Some looked sympathetic. Most just looked curious, like they were watching a play. In the room, the deputy stood outside the door. Inside, Nathaniel helped Zoe sit on the bed. The handcuffs clinked. "Can't you take these off?" he asked the deputy through the door. "No, sir. Marshal's orders." Nathaniel wanted to punch something, punch someone, tear the world apart with his bare hands. Instead, he sat beside Zoe and pulled her against him as carefully as he could with her hands bound. "I'm sorry," he said. "God, Zoe, I'm so sorry. I should have done more, found a way. I failed you." "You didn't fail me. You loved me. You gave me hope. You showed me what it means to be treated like a human being instead of property." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's not failure, Nathaniel. That's everything." "But you're still going back." "For now. But I won't give up. I'll find a way to escape again. He won't let you. He'll lock you up somewhere you can't run from. He'll marry you off to Voss before you can breathe. Then maybe that's my fate. Maybe I was always meant to lose this fight." "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true. Men like my uncle always win. Men like you, good men, kind men. You try so hard, but in the end, power always wins." He pulled back to look at her. "I don't accept that. I can't. You have to. Because tomorrow morning I'm getting on that stage and you're staying here, and that's the end of our story." "No, it's not. I'll come after you. You'll storm into Boston and demand they release me. You have no legal standing. No money. No power. Nathaniel, please. Don't throw your life away on a fight you can't win. You're my life. Don't you understand that without you, I'm back to where I started. Alone. Half dead. Going through motions. I don't want that. I don't want to live without you." She kissed him. Desperately. Hungrily. Like she was trying to memorize the taste of him, the feel of him, everything about this moment. When she pulled back, her cheeks were wet. "I love you. I'll love you until the day I die. But please, Nathaniel, please don't follow me. Please just live. Be happy. Find someone else who—" "There is no one else. There's only you." They held each other as the sun set outside their window. As the town grew quiet. As the last day they'd ever have together slipped away into darkness. Neither of them slept. They just lay there memorizing each other, whispering promises they both knew they couldn't keep. When dawn came cold and merciless, the marshal knocked on the door. "Time to go, Mrs. Reed." Nathaniel helped her stand, helped her put on her shawl, walked with her down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the street where the stage waited like a hearse. The marshal opened the door. Zoe turned to Nathaniel one last time. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. For seeing me. For loving me. For showing me I was worth fighting for." "You are worth fighting for. You always will be." She stepped into the stage. The marshal climbed in after her. The driver cracked his whip. The stage rolled away, taking Zoe with it, taking Nathaniel's heart with it, taking everything that mattered. He stood in the street watching until it disappeared around the bend, until the dust settled, until there was nothing left but emptiness. Tom appeared beside him, hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Nathaniel." Nathaniel didn't answer. Couldn't. If he opened his mouth, he'd scream. Or break. Or both. He turned and walked away. Past the sheriff's office. Past the hotel. Past the church. He walked until he reached his horse, mounted, and rode out of town. He didn't know where he was going. Didn't care. He just needed to move. To do something. To not stand still while the world ended around him. He was halfway to the ranch when he heard hoofbeats behind him. Fast. Urgent. He turned. Pastor Mackenzie riding hell-bent, waving his arms. "Nathaniel! Stop, Nathaniel!" He pulled up. "What?" The pastor reached him, gasping for breath. "Telegram. From Boston. From that lawyer Peterson. Just came in. You need to see this. He thrust a crumpled paper into Nathaniel's hand. Nathaniel read it. Read it again. His hands started shaking. Is this real? According to Martha, yes, Peterson found something. Something big. Something that changes everything. Hope, painful, dangerous, impossible hope flared in Nathaniel's chest. We have to stop that stage. It's been an hour. I don't care. We have to stop it. He kicked his horse into a gallop. The pastor followed. They raced east, following the stage road, pushing the horses harder than they should, harder than was safe. 2 hours later, they crested a rise and saw it. The stage stopped at the relay station, changing horses. Nathaniel didn't slow down. He rode straight into the station yard, dismounted before his horse stopped moving, ran to the stage. The marshal stepped out, hand on his gun. Mr. Reed, you're making a mistake. No, you are. You need to see this. He shoved the telegram at the marshal. Cartwright read it, his expression unchanging. Then he read it again, and something shifted in his face. Where did you get this? Lawyer in Boston, Samuel Peterson. He investigated Silas Caldwell. These are serious allegations. They're true. Every word, and you know it. The marshal looked at the telegram a third time, at the words that changed everything. Silas Caldwell under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and the suspicious deaths of 2 women. Warrant issued. Edmund Voss arrested for murder of his previous wives. Testimony implicates Caldwell as accomplice. Authorities seeking Zoe Caldwell as witness, not suspect. All charges against her dropped. Guardian status revoked. Cartwright folded the telegram, looked at Nathaniel, then at the stage where Zoe sat, still handcuffed, still prisoner. Mrs. Reed, he called. Step out, please. She emerged, blinking in the sunlight, confused. She saw Nathaniel and her face transformed. Nathaniel? What? The marshal pulled out a key, unlocked her handcuffs. They fell to the dust. Mrs. Reed, I owe you an apology. It appears I was operating on false information. You're free to go. She stared at him, at Nathaniel, at the telegram in the marshal's hand. I don't understand. Nathaniel pulled her into his arms, held her so tight he couldn't breathe. It's over. Your uncle, he's been arrested. They found proof. You're free, Zoe. You're really free. She made a sound, laughter or sobbing or both. She buried her face in his chest and shook. Is it real? Is this really happening? It's real. I swear to God it's real. The marshal cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Mrs. Reed, I'm sorry for what you've been through. The system failed you. I failed you. If you choose to file a complaint against me or the department, I don't care about complaints, Zoe said, pulling back to look at him. I just want to go home. Then go. You're free to do whatever you want. Be whoever you want. The law has no claim on you anymore. She turned to Nathaniel. Her eyes were streaming. Her smile was radiant, and she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Take me home, Nathaniel Reed. Yes, ma'am. They rode back to Silverdale together. Word had already spread. Martha's telegram network was faster than lightning, and by the time they reached town, people were lining the streets cheering, celebrating like it was the 4th of July. Buck shook Nathaniel's hand so hard it hurt. Tom bought drinks for everyone at the Silver Dollar. Martha cried and hugged Zoe and declared it the most romantic thing she'd ever witnessed. But Nathaniel barely noticed any of it. All he saw was Zoe. All that mattered was her hand in his, her presence beside him, the knowledge that she was his and safe and free. That evening, they rode back to the ranch. Their home. The bullet holes were still in the wall, but they'd fix those. The work would still be hard, but they'd do it together. The future was still uncertain, but they'd face it side by side. As the sun set and painted the mountains gold, they stood on the porch where their story had begun. You're not alone now, Nathaniel said softly. Zoe smiled up at him. No, I'm not. And neither are you. They went inside together, closed the door on the past, and stepped into the future they'd fought so hard to claim. The cabin felt different that night. Not just because the danger had passed, or because they were finally truly alone. It was something deeper, something that had shifted between them during those awful hours when they'd thought they'd lost each other forever. The walls seemed to hold their breath as Nathaniel lit the lamps, and Zoe stood in the center of the room looking around like she was seeing it for the first time. "I thought I'd never be here again," she said quietly. "But you are." "I am." She turned to him. "Nathaniel, I need to know what the telegram said. All of it. Not just the parts you told me." He pulled the paper from his pocket, smoothed it out on the table. She stood beside him reading over his shoulder. Uncle Silas arrested for fraud and embezzlement. Edmund Voss charged with the murders of his first 2 wives. Her voice shook. "They're saying Uncle Silas helped him. Covered it up. Made the deaths look like accidents." Peterson found a witness, a servant who'd worked for Voss. She came forward after seeing the reward notice, not Caldwell's reward for you, but one Peterson posted asking for information about Voss's wives. She testified that she'd seen Voss poison his second wife and that Silas Caldwell had paid her to keep silent. Once she talked, others came forward too. How many others? 5. All servants, all scared, all saying the same thing, that Caldwell and Voss were partners in more than business, that they used their money and power to hurt people and hide the evidence. Zoe sat down hard. "He was going to give me to a murderer. He knew what Edmund had done, and he was going to marry me off to him anyway. And now they're both going to prison, maybe worse. Massachusetts still hangs murderers." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "I almost didn't get away. If Clara hadn't helped me, if I hadn't found that agency, if you hadn't—" Her voice broke. "So many things had to go right for me to survive. But they did, and you're here, and you're safe. Because of you. Because of us. We fought for this, Zoe, together." She stood cross to him, put her hands on his chest. "I love you. I don't think I've said it enough. I love you so much it scares me." "Why does it scare you?" "Because I've never had anything this good. I keep waiting for it to be taken away." He covered her hands with his. "I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you. We're married. We're free. We're home. That's not changing." She rose up on her toes and kissed him. Not like before, not desperate or terrified or goodbye. This kiss was different. It was a promise, a beginning. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed. "I want this to be real, not just a marriage on paper. I want to be your wife in every way. I'm ready." His heart hammered. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "Zoe, we don't have to rush. If you need time, I don't need time. I need you." He kissed her again, softer this time, and when he picked her up and carried her to the bed, she laughed against his neck. They fumbled with buttons and laces, awkward and eager and perfect. And when they finally came together, it wasn't just bodies joining. It was 2 people who'd been broken finding wholeness in each other. Afterward, they lay tangled in the blankets, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "I was so scared I'd lost you," he whispered. "When that stage pulled away, I thought that was it. That I'd spend the rest of my life remembering what it felt like to love you and regretting that I didn't fight harder. You fought as hard as anyone could. Harder than you should have. You could have died. Would have been worth it." "Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Your life is worth everything, Nathaniel Reed." He kissed the top of her head. "So is yours." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, safe and whole and home. The next weeks passed in a blur of normalcy that felt like a miracle. They worked the ranch together, repaired the fence that had been damaged in a storm, planted a late garden that might or might not produce before the first frost. Zoe learned to ride properly. Not just sit on a horse, but actually control it. And the day she galloped across the meadow with her hair flying behind her. Nathaniel felt his chest swell with something too big for words. Letters came from Boston. Peterson sent updates on the trial. Silas Caldwell had tried to flee, but was caught at the harbor. Voss had confessed, hoping for leniency, and implicated Caldwell in everything. The servants who'd testified were being relocated, given new identities protected from retaliation. "They're calling me a hero," Zoe said one evening reading the latest letter. "Peterson says the prosecutor wants me to testify, that my story could help convict them both. Do you want to go back?" She set the letter down. "Part of me does. Part of me wants to stand in that courtroom and tell everyone what they did, what they tried to do, but you're scared. Terrified. What if they find a way to twist things? What if I say something wrong and they get acquitted?" "They won't. Too many people have already testified. Your story is just one more nail in their coffin." "I know, but still." She looked at him. "Would you come with me if I went to Boston to testify?" "Yes. I can't do it alone." "You're not alone. You're never alone again. If you want to go, we'll go together." She smiled, but it was shaky. "It'll cost money we don't have. The trip, the hotel, everything." Peterson said he'd cover expenses. "The court wants you there badly enough to pay for it." "When would we leave?" "Trial's set for mid-September. That gives us a month to prepare." She nodded slowly. "All right. Let's do it. Let's go back and finish this." They traveled east in late August, taking the stage to Denver, and then the train the rest of the way. Zoe watched the landscape change outside the window mountains, giving way to plains, giving way to cities. She'd been quiet since they left Montana, withdrawing into herself, and Nathaniel could feel her fear growing with every mile. "Talk to me," he said as they crossed into Massachusetts. "I don't know what to say." "Anything. Everything. What you're thinking." She turned from the window. "I'm thinking about the last time I was here, how scared I was, how trapped. I'm thinking about my parents and how much I miss them. I'm thinking about all the times I walked these streets and felt like I was drowning." She paused. "And I'm thinking about how different it is now, because I'm not alone anymore, because I have you." "You do. Always." Boston was bigger and louder and dirtier than Nathaniel had imagined. Buildings rose up like mountains made of brick and stone. People rushed everywhere, more people than he'd seen in his entire life combined. The noise was overwhelming: horses, carriages, vendors, shouting, factory whistles, church bells. Zoe pressed close to him as they navigated the crowded streets. "I forgot how much I hated this." "We don't have to stay long. Testify, go home." "Home. God, that sounds good." Peterson met them at their hotel, a modest place near the courthouse. Nothing fancy but clean. He was a small man with sharp eyes and a firmer handshake than his size suggested. "Mrs. Reed. Mr. Reed. Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy." "When does she testify?" Nathaniel asked. "Day after tomorrow. The prosecution wants to end strong, and your wife's testimony will be powerful. A survivor speaking truth to power. The jury will remember that." "What do I need to do?" Zoe asked. "Tell the truth, that's all. Just tell them exactly what happened, what your uncle did, what he tried to do. The prosecutor will guide you, ask questions, but the most important thing is that you're honest and clear." "What if the defense attorney tries to make me look bad?" "He will, that's his job, but we've prepared for that. We have documentation of the abuse, the bruises that were witnessed by others, the servants who saw what happened. Your testimony is just one piece, but it's an important piece." They spent the next day preparing. Peterson coached Zoe on how to answer questions, how to stay calm under cross-examination, how to look at the jury instead of the defense attorney. Nathaniel watched her transform from terrified woman to determined witness. "You're going to do great," he told her that night in their hotel room. "I hope so. I keep thinking about facing him. Uncle Silas. Seeing him in person after everything." He can't hurt you anymore. I know. But that doesn't make it easier. The courtroom was packed when they arrived the next morning. Nathaniel had never seen so many people crammed into one space. Reporters, spectators, lawyers in dark suits. And at the defense table, flanked by his attorneys, sat Silas Caldwell. He looked older than Nathaniel expected. Gray hair, expensive suit, but his eyes were hard and cold. When he saw Zoe, something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe anger, maybe fear. Zoe's hand tightened on Nathaniel's arm. "I can do this," she whispered. "I know you can." The judge entered. Everyone stood. The trial resumed. The prosecution called Zoe Reed to the stand. Zoe walked to the witness box, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth. She sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and looked directly at the prosecutor. "Mrs. Reed, can you tell the court your relationship to the defendant? He's my uncle, my mother's brother. And after your parents died, you went to live with him." "Yes. He said it was family duty, that he'd take care of me." "Did he take care of you?" "No. He controlled me, monitored everything I did, read my mail, chose my clothes, dictated who I could see and speak to." "Did you feel like you had freedom in his house?" "No, I felt like a prisoner." The prosecutor nodded. "Can you tell the court what happened when you refused to marry Edmund Voss?" Zoe took a breath. "My uncle told me that I was going to marry Mr. Voss. I refused. I said I didn't know him, didn't love him, didn't want to marry anyone. My uncle became angry. He said I was ungrateful, that I owed him for taking me in, that I was property and he could dispose of me however he wished. What happened next? He struck me, across the face, hard enough that I fell. Then he kicked me while I was on the ground, called me ungrateful, worthless, said I'd marry Voss or he'd make my life so miserable I'd beg for death." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel. "Did anyone witness this assault?" The servants. But they were too afraid to intervene. "What did you do?" "I waited until he locked me in my room. Then my friend Clara, she worked in the house, she helped me escape. Gave me money, clothes, the address of a mail-order bride agency. I left Boston the next day. And you ended up in Montana Territory, where you married the man sitting behind you." Nathaniel Reed. "Yes." "Did you marry him to escape your uncle?" Zoe paused, looked at Nathaniel, looked back at the prosecutor. "I married him because he was kind, because he saw me as a person, not property, because he gave me safety and hope and love. Yes, I was running from my uncle, but I ran toward Nathaniel. There's a difference." The prosecutor smiled. No further questions. The defense attorney stood. He was tall, silver-haired, with a voice like oil. "Mrs. Reed, or should I call you Miss Caldwell, after all the marriage you claim is hardly legal, given your mental state?" "Objection," the prosecutor said. "The witness's mental state has been evaluated and found sound." "Sustained. Rephrase, counselor." The defense attorney nodded. "Mrs. Reed, isn't it true that you stole money from your uncle?" "I took money that belonged to me. Money from my father's estate." "But you have no proof of that, do you?" "My uncle controlled all the records. He made sure I'd have no proof. Or perhaps there was no proof because the money was his, not yours. Perhaps you're simply a thief trying to justify your actions." "I'm not a thief." "No." "Then how do you explain the $200 you took from his safe?" "I needed it to survive, to escape, to run away because you knew you'd committed a crime." "No, I ran because he beat me, because he was going to force me to marry a murderer." "Alleged murderer. Mr. Voss has not been convicted." "He confessed." "Under duress, he claims." "Regardless, you've admitted to theft. You've admitted to lying to the marriage agency. You've admitted to entering into a hasty marriage with a stranger. Does that sound like the behavior of a rational, stable person?" Zoe's hands clenched. Nathaniel could see her fighting to stay calm. It sounds like the behavior of someone trying to survive. Or someone prone to delusion and irrational decisions. I'm not delusional. Aren't you? You claim your uncle beat you. Yet the bruises are gone. No medical records exist. The only witnesses are servants who might say anything to avoid trouble with their employer. The servants are telling the truth. Or they're telling the story you want them to tell. Mrs. Reed, isn't it possible that you misunderstood your uncle's intentions, that you overreacted, that you created this elaborate fantasy to justify running away? No, that's not. Isn't it true that you suffer from melancholia, that after your parents died, you exhibited signs of mental distress? I was grieving. That's not mental illness. But you admit you were not yourself. I was sad. I wasn't insane. Who's to say where sadness ends and insanity begins? Perhaps your uncle, concerned for your welfare, was trying to help you by arranging a beneficial marriage. Perhaps you misinterpreted his actions through the lens of your disordered mind. My mind isn't disordered. Then why did you run? Why not go to the authorities? Why not seek help through proper channels? Because he owns the authorities. Because he has money and power, and no one would believe me. Or because you knew your accusations were false. Because you knew that any rational examination of the facts would reveal you for what you are, a disturbed young woman who stole money and ran away when faced with adult responsibilities. Nathaniel was on his feet before he knew he was moving. That's enough. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Reed, sit down, or I'll have you removed. He's twisting everything. He's making her sound crazy when she's the sanest person I know. Bailiff, escort Mr. Reed from the courtroom. No, please. Zoe stood looking at the judge. Please don't remove him. I need him here, please. The judge studied them both. Mr. Reed, one more outburst and you're gone. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor. Sit down. Nathaniel sat. His hands were shaking with rage. The defense attorney smiled. No further questions. Zoe stepped down from the witness box. She looked exhausted, beaten. When she sat beside Nathaniel, he took her hand and held it tight. You did good, he whispered. He made me sound insane. He made you sound human. The jury saw through it, I promise. He hoped he was right. The trial continued for 3 more days. Other witnesses testified. Servants who'd seen Caldwell's cruelty. Accountants who'd examined his books and found evidence of embezzlement. Doctors who'd examined Voss's wives' bodies and found traces of poison. The evidence piled up damning and undeniable. Silas Caldwell took the stand in his own defense. He was smooth, polished, convincing. He claimed he'd only wanted what was best for his niece, that she'd been unstable since her parents' deaths, that he'd tried to help her, protect her, give her a good life. He claimed the servants were lying, the accountants were mistaken. The whole thing was a conspiracy against a successful businessman. He almost made it sound believable. But then the prosecutor showed the photographs. Pictures of the bruises on one of Voss's wives. Medical records that had been hidden but not destroyed. Testimony from the witness who'd seen Voss poison his wife and seen Caldwell pay for her silence. The defense crumbled. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdict. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of embezzlement, guilty. Zoe gasped. Nathaniel pulled her close as she started to shake. Silas Caldwell's face went white. His lawyers immediately began filing motions demanding appeals, but the judge banged his gavel. Mr. Caldwell, you are hereby sentenced to 20 years in prison. Bailiff, take him into custody. They led him away in chains. As he passed their row, he looked directly at Zoe. For a moment, something like regret crossed his face. Then it hardened into hatred. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, it is, Zoe said. Her voice was strong, clear. You're going to prison. I'm going home. It's over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Nathaniel pushed through, keeping Zoe close, ignoring their questions. Peterson caught up with them at the hotel. "You did it, both of you. That testimony, Mrs. Reed, you were incredible." "I didn't feel incredible. I felt like I was falling apart. But you didn't. You stood up there and told the truth, and the jury heard you. That's what mattered." "Is it really over?" she asked. "It's really over. Caldwell's going to prison. Voss is going to hang. You're free. Completely, legally, irrevocably free." She started crying. Not sad tears. Relief. Joy. The kind of tears that come when something you've carried for too long is finally lifted away. Peterson shook Nathaniel's hand. "Take care of her. She's been through hell." "I will, for the rest of my life." They left Boston the next morning. Zoe didn't look back. The journey home felt different from the journey east. Lighter. Easier. By the time they crossed back into Montana territory, Zoe was smiling again. Really smiling, the kind of smile that started in her eyes and spread to her whole face. "Look," she said, pointing out the train window. "The mountains. We're almost home." Home. The word sounded perfect. Tom met them at the Silverdale station with the wagon. "Welcome back. We missed you." "How's the ranch?" Nathaniel asked. "Fine. Kept an eye on it like I promised. Your cattle didn't miss you, though. Ornery beasts." They laughed. It felt good to laugh. The cabin was exactly as they'd left it. Nathaniel carried their bags inside while Zoe stood in the doorway, breathing in the smell of home wood smoke and pine and the faint scent of sage from the hills. "We made it," she said. "We did. I can't believe we actually made it." He came to stand beside her. "Believe it. We fought for this. We earned this." She turned to him, put her hands on his chest. "What do we do now?" Now we live. We work the ranch. We build a life. He paused. "We have a family if you want one." Her eyes widened. "A family?" "Kids. Lots of them. Running around causing chaos, making this place feel alive. But only if you want that. No pressure. We can just—" She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I want that. I want everything with you." "Then that's what we'll do." That winter was hard like all Montana winters, but they faced it together. They built up their supplies, reinforced the cabin against the storms, spent long evenings by the fire, reading and talking and planning their future. In the spring, Zoe told him she was pregnant. Nathaniel's hands shook when he touched her still flat belly. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Martha confirmed it. She says the baby will come in October." "October? That's terrifying, wonderful, both." "Both." He looked up at her. "Are you scared?" "A little, but mostly I'm happy. We're making a family, Nathaniel, a real family, something good and pure and ours." "I love you." "I love you too." Their daughter was born on October 15, 1884, during the first snowfall of the season. Martha and the doctor helped deliver her while Nathaniel paced outside, terrified and useless. When Martha finally let him in, Zoe was propped up in bed, exhausted and radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. "Meet your daughter," she said. Nathaniel approached slowly, like he might break something. The baby was so small, red-faced and squalling and perfect. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She looks like you. She looks like you. Maybe she looks like both of us." He sat on the edge of the bed, put his finger in the baby's palm. She gripped it with surprising strength. "What should we name her?" Zoe asked. "I was thinking Amelia, after my mother." "Amelia Reed. I love it." They sat there, the three of them, while snow fell outside, and the fire crackled, and the whole world felt new and full of possibility. The years that followed were good. Hard, but good. They added 2 more children, a son they named Jacob after Nathaniel's father, and another daughter they called Sarah. The cabin expanded, grew to hold their growing family. Nathaniel built a workshop, a bigger barn, a chicken coop that Zoe insisted on painting blue. Tom Wilson married Martha Hendricks's daughter and built his own ranch on the next valley over. They'd meet every Sunday for dinner, the families growing up together, the children running wild across the grassland. Pastor Mackenzie married 4 more couples that year, inspired by Nathaniel and Zoe's story. "You gave people hope," he told them. "You showed them that love could win, even when everything was stacked against it." Letters came occasionally from Boston. Peterson wrote to say that Silas Caldwell had died in prison pneumonia. They said, though, there were whispers. It was something else. Edmund Voss had hanged as scheduled. The servants who'd testified had new lives, new names, new chances. "Do you ever think about going back?" Nathaniel asked Zoe one evening. They were on the porch watching their children chase fireflies in the dusk. "To see the city, to visit your parents' graves." "Sometimes, but this is home now. Those graves are just stone. The real memorial to my parents is here, this life we built, this family. They'd be proud of that. I think they would be too." Little Amelia ran up the porch steps out of breath and grinning. "Papa, can you tell us the story again?" "What story, sweetheart?" "The one about how you and Mama met, how you saved her from the bad man." Nathaniel looked at Zoe. She smiled and nodded. "All right. Come here, all of you." The children gathered around Amelia Jacob and little Sarah, who was barely 3, and didn't understand half of it, but listened anyway, because her siblings were. "Once upon a time," Nathaniel began, "there was a lonely rancher who lived in a cabin by a creek. He'd been alone so long he forgot what it was like to smile. Then one day a woman stepped off a stagecoach and everything changed." "Was she pretty?" Amelia asked. "She was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. But more than that, she was brave. She'd crossed a whole continent to escape something terrible. And when I saw her face—" "She had a bruise," Jacob interrupted. "From the bad uncle." "She did. And I knew right then that I had to help her, that I had to keep her safe. So I said—" "You're not alone now," all 3 children chorused. Nathaniel laughed. "That's right, and I meant it. She wasn't alone anymore, and neither was I." "And then you got married and fought the bad men and won," Amelia said. "We did, but the most important part wasn't fighting. It was choosing each other. Every day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." Sarah yawned, rubbing her eyes. Zoe stood and scooped her up. "Time for bed, little ones." "Ah, but Mama." "No buts. Tomorrow's another day, and there will be more stories then." They got the children to bed, tucked them in, kissed them good night. Then Nathaniel and Zoe returned to the porch, to the quiet evening and the stars overhead. "Do you ever regret it?" Zoe asked. "Taking me in that day, all the trouble that came with it?" "Not for a second. Not even when people were shooting at us. Not even then." She leaned against him. "I don't regret it either. Any of it. Even the bad parts led us here, and here is perfect. I was going to say home, but perfect works too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel across the sky. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called. The creek murmured its eternal song. The wind whispered through the grass. "Nathaniel. Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For giving me this life, this family, this home." He pulled her closer. "You gave me the same thing, Zoe. Maybe more. Before you came, I was just existing. You taught me how to live again. We saved each other." "Yeah, I guess we did." Years later, when Nathaniel was gray and Zoe's hair had gone silver, they'd sit on that same porch and watch their grandchildren play in the yard. Amelia had married a good man and had 3 children of her own. Jacob ran cattle on the North Range with Tom Wilson's son. Sarah had become a teacher like Nathaniel's mother before her. "We did all right," Nathaniel would say. "We did better than all right," Zoe would answer. "We built something beautiful." And she was right. They had built something beautiful. Not just a family, or a ranch, or a life, but a testament to the power of choosing love over fear, kindness over cruelty, hope over despair. They'd taken two broken people and made them whole. They'd taken darkness and turned it into light. Their story became legend in Silverdale. People told it to their children, who told it to their children. The rancher who found a mail-order bride with a bruised face and a note who looked at her broken and battered and said 5 words that changed 2 lives forever. "You're not alone now." And they never were alone again. Not for all the days of their long and happy lives together, proving that sometimes the best love stories aren't the easy ones, but the ones fought for and earned and cherished every single day, and that kindness and courage can rebuild what cruelty tried to destroy, one moment, one choice, one promise at a time.